Right, perfect. So I will call the meeting of the Sixth-Town Regional Planning Board to order at 6:39, and we will have a roll call vote. How about I just call your name, I'll go across the screen, and then you can repeat the name and say you're present. Mike?
Mike Naughton, present.
Greg?
Greg Snedeker here.
Christy?
Christy Solda, present.
Steve?
Steve Richter, present.
Deb Potey?
Deborah Potee, present.
Potey? Thanks, Deb.
No.
One of these years. Deb
You're in
Loomer
France, du Potee.
Deb Loomer here.
and Jennifer
Jennifer Coffin here.
and Bill
William Tome here.
and David
David Young here.
and Alan Genovese present. So there we go. We have our quorum and we will go right on to the minutes. Greg does not have a set of minutes. They'll be forthcoming shortly. Greg's been pretty busy. You want to make your quick announcement here? Or is that, nope? Okay, we will wait until it's official later. Not at this meeting. So we, and then Jennifer, we never really asked you. We sort of thought when you weren't here, maybe you'd be willing to look and do the October 5th minutes and give you a chance to find, you know, go to the website, find them and look at them. Is that something you could do, Jen?
Just reiterate the ask. Listen to the audio and do the minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have to, we're not a he said, she said, it's just the gist of what we talked about or what we voted on or what we agreed on. So that is as long as.
Can do.
Okay.
Yep.
And you could look at a set of minutes on there and that would just show you, you know, that we say who's present, who's absent, and then we just go to the agenda and hit the items. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to meeting with Pioneer students, that did occur and it went really well. There were I don't know, 7, 8, 9. They were having a student a leadership meeting with the class officers and the student council. And I thought it was going to be in a classroom because that's what was originally planned, but they had it in the Kiva, which was really nice. And Ms. Mine is she was given an award as part of that, her involvement with the best teacher or in the district this year, voted by her peers. So they had a nice little intermission for that. And then I had a little bit of time to explain to the students what we were about and what our plan was to get the two student bodies together and have a facilitator talk to them about what might be possible. At 6:43, Michelle Garuso joined us, just for the record. So one of the things that was pretty amazing, I thought, in terms of getting information from students, I had about 5 minutes left and I just opened it up and said, you know, do you have any comments or, you know, concerns or any suggestions or things you want us to be thinking about? Because it's really to get your feedback. And right out of the gate, I immediately started to realize, well, I heard some suggestions that are things that we need to think about. One of the young ladies there said, you know, she's from Vernon. She wanted to know if we'd be sending a bus up there. I talked to Kathy after and found out that it does go up and loop around and come back, and that there are families that are interested. She said there's like 6, maybe more families that are interested. So the students said, you know, well, you know, I want to continue coming here and with some of my friends, and we have more people that are interested. And so are you going to be going up and talking to our parents? So I'm like, okay, good one. So that's something we'll have to, add to our list of activities. Another student, when he heard that the middle school would be at Pioneer, is what we're looking at, and the high school at Turners Falls, he brought up, well, what do you do if you have a very talented student athlete in the middle school that would be able to handle playing on a JV or varsity? Would we have a way for that to happen? Which immediately resonated with me because my granddaughter went to Mahar, and when she was in the 8th grade, she was the starting catcher for the varsity, and for all 5 years. So, here you had an 8th grader kind of directing the kids on the field and what signals and so forth. So I thought that was pretty awesome. So bottom line is they're excited about meeting with the Turners Falls staff. I got the same vibes from Turners Falls students. So I reached out to Kathy Hawkins Harrison, who's the acting principal at Pioneer right now, and she gave me some dates that could work. She pointed out that we really need to try to do this in March, and the earlier the better. So because of sports starting up, because of there's MCAT prep going on, and the year will just get busier. So I did reach out to Christopher Barnes and shared some of the dates that she thought would work for Pioneer, and asked him if he could make those work. I also reached out to the bus company, Kosmeskis, and went over those dates to see if buses could be available. And she said, yes, that could work. The idea would be in the morning after they do their 2-tier run, the high school and the elementary. And I'm thinking of a couple of hours with the students for a tour and gaining information. And so that's in the hopper. And so I just wanted to share that we're moving forward with what's going on there. I do realize that the next task I need to do is write a cover letter to the parents, so that, because it's a field trip situation, so the parents would know what this was about, why their child would be going to the other school to visit and have a conversation, and contribute to what they could get excited about if the districts were to merge together. I forget who I was having a dialogue with. It was one of you. I don't remember who, but it was a really good suggestion in terms of concern about, we're talking to the leadership of each school. And what about, how are we going to include, students that are sort of in the mainstream of their education, or maybe needing to take advantage of some of the support services that we have. And that was a really good point. So I was thinking perhaps one way we could approach this is either ask the acting principal and principal of the schools to see if one additional students, could be added to pair up with those that are on the council or officer. Or another way would be to just ask those kids if they have a friend or someone that they think would contribute for a little bit different perspective. So I sent that out to Chris Barnes with a copy to Kathy to just say, did they think that something like that might be possible? It wouldn't be that many more kids. You'd probably bring it up to 18 to 20 that would be visiting the other school, but it would be really good feedback, I think. So I'll pause there if you have thoughts around getting them together. Deb, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I think Mike has had his hand up for a while, just to let
Oh,
you.
there we go. She's still on mute. Mike?
Well, yeah, Alan, could we clarify what kind of what the goal is here?
Oh.
What I mean, we're getting you're getting the students together, they're gonna talk about all this. Just to kind of clarify my thinking, my understanding is that the STRPB is in the process of trying to gather feedback from the select boards about whether to proceed with, essentially recommending that this happen and then coming up with a proposed district agreement or maybe more than one proposed district agreements. And so I'm wondering how meeting with the students at this point fits into that process. What role and how you see them helping that out.
Okay, so I guess I thought it was pretty clear, Mike, in the communications that I've been having with the planning board in my cover letters and in our meetings explaining what we're doing, but obviously I'm not clear. So let me just back up then. We have a two-part process, and we're continuing on the educational piece. Because of COVID, we've only been able to get limited information from our constituents and the stakeholders. And now we have an opportunity to reach out and get a lot more information and feedback and questions and answers from our stakeholders. So we're moving forward, Mike, with having a facilitator do meet with these groups again, and hopefully more participation to gain more information, because the information we had was from smaller numbers. The purpose of the students was we have not included one of the most critical pieces, which is to see what students, what is it that they would like to see if the schools were to merge together, whether it be courses, programs, services. I got a little bit of feedback on ideas that they immediately started to share in my quick little forum with a small group about middle school
Okay, so
sports and so forth.
okay, I think I get it, Alan. Thank you.
So, and now
So when that information
concurrently,
is collected, it will be shared with the select boards?
yes, so we're moving forward with that initiative right now, as soon as we get a facilitator on board. And we're going to the PTAs next in each of the schools. We're going to pull that together. And from those interactions, engagements, and so forth, where we're doing a brief presentation and spending a lot of time listening and hearing what their questions are and providing answers and documenting that. When we get, and concurrently, we have each of the districts, very soon we'll have their numbers from the budget, from the governor's budget. And from that, they'll be running an assessment to see how that plays out to the towns. We can run those assessments and use the three methodologies to see how those would play out to the towns. And we can do it as a 5-town and as a 6-town. And then we can follow that up with a financial adjustment on a potential salary schedule for our bargaining unit members to see if that were added into the existing budget, what that might look like, as well as the benefits. Well, they'll have the benefits in their budget, but
Can we
the
stay
other
focused
financial
on the
pieces.
kids for a minute?
Pardon?
Can we stay focused on what you were
Yes.
first talking about, which is meeting with the students?
Yes. Well, I thought Mike was getting a broader
Well,
question.
that's all well and good, but you don't need to diverge yourself.
Okay, and so that's what we'll be going back to the select board when we get all that information. So I'll go to
Okay,
Deb Loomer, and then I'll go to Bill. You have your hand up. Deb,
Okay.
I'm all set.
Bill?
Yeah, I just want to question a couple things about what you just said about meeting with the kids. Number one, I'm not sure in the future that necessarily has to happen during school time. I think it could happen after school and the kids would be volunteering. Secondly, if you're thinking about doing it at school time and you're also thinking about how large a group you're planning to pull together, how is that going to interrupt the schools that you're going to tour? They're in the middle of a day. So again, I think a tour should be a voluntary type thing that is after hours. The students plan a lot of their events after hours. It's not all done during the school day. And this could be the same kind of thing. We don't meet with the faculty during the day. We meet them afterwards, interrupting their whatever it is we interrupt. And then lastly, if you are talking about transportation, are we prepared to pay for that transportation? Because the schools are hammered enough on transportation. And I think you have to take that into account in the whole realm of thought about what is our budget for and what do we even need a budget for? And that's the kind, to me, that's the kind of thing that we should have a budget for, transporting people around to get them involved. And that'll do it. Thank you.
Alan,
Okay, no, thank you, Bill. Let me just comment, Bill, we did put aside money for food to, if they come for a couple hours during the day, you're looking at probably a total of 4 hours touring, or 5 hours, I guess, in both. So I'll take a look at that, but we did look at transportation to put that, and so our grant would pay for that, and it would also pay for food, so that when they went back, they could go right back into their classes. You mentioned something else too. Oh, how would we get them home? So if it's a volunteer, then and after school, we transport them to each one of their schools, but then they would need to have their parents come pick them up. So I thought when I put this out there, I talked about a field trip during the day, and I didn't get any pushback from the kids or the principal yet, but if I do, I will, maybe if this really takes root and we want to have more conversations with perhaps students and parents and have a forum, that would be pretty exciting. So we can see what comes out of this, and then maybe expand that to bring them together.
Alan,
Deb?
just a response to Bill. With the schools being so small, to be quite honest with you, a lot of your leadership also contains a lot of your athletes and so forth. And so I think their after school time, I don't want them to have to truthfully start to pick and choose between they can go to play practice or they can go to this meeting. It's just too small a body of people. And I'll be honest with you, when we talked about getting teachers to volunteer, and of course that was at the end of school, that number was also small. I think if this is a priority, and it's a priority to the principals, then taking, an hour of time at the end of school, towards the end of the school day, so that who's going to be responsible for transporting them home. But I think if this is important enough, which I think it is, I, as a teacher, would not consider it a disruption to my school day, though some teachers would. I would think of it as a more of a civic duty that these students are learning to do when they feel like there is an issue that's that important. So I would toss that out.
Okay, and we also have the issue of sports. When I talked to Kathy, the acting principal at Pioneer, she said that sports starts up March 20 or 21st, might be the 21st. So to your point, she said, if you can do it, try to do it before the end of March, before sports starts up, because then, you have a lot of kids that wouldn't be able to do that. I saw Jennifer Coffin and then Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Someone had mentioned the parent involvement, and well, I think that during the school day wouldn't be disruptive. I think Deb had mentioned that. But if we want to sort of get 2 for 1, everybody involved in an after school, and possibly a 5:30-ish, parents out of work and can go in support, that might adhere to the biggest audience of both parents and students. Just throwing that out there.
Right, and that could be with a facilitator, really just with parents and students sharing and with each other as well through a facilitator. Steve, you had your hand up too, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking if I mean, we're talking about, from what I hear you say, we're talking about maybe 10 students going to visit the other school. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd like if they could have a friend or someone else to be 20, but I don't know, but yes, it's a small group.
A small group. So if we could break that group up and have someone from the other school tour them around, it's not such a big interruption in terms of in classes. You know, so you break them up and have them go around. And there was something else I was thinking about, but I lost it. So we'll go with that as an idea. Oh,
Yeah.
also the other part is they really get to see the school when the school's in action. You walk around the school after school and you're walking through empty classrooms, and that says nothing. You know, it doesn't give you any idea of what goes on in that school. So I think during the school day is appropriate. I think it's also a really important thing to do. So Pioneer kids could see what Gil Montague's like, and Gil Montague could see what Pioneer is like. And I think the other thing that we've thought about in the past is we've had conversations about cultural differences here and there. And I'd like to see the kids observe that and see what comes out of that. What are their questions about that? How do they feel about that? I know as adults, we have ideas of what those differences are, but I think when kids are with other kids, they get a better idea of what the other placement's like. So that's my piece.
Yeah, and I think you can get a flavor of the school just walking through the halls and stuff. The idea is not to be disruptive. In other words, you know, show the kids, here's the theater, here's the gymnasium, here's the library, here's the pool, here's the activity room if they're you know, for exercise or whatever. Here's what the campus looks like. So it's not meant to be intrusive. I don't think we should be going through classrooms. But, you know, during that process, as kids are in the hall and things that, you know, the normal activity of a school, I think gives it a, you know, a real flavor of what the school is like. And to your point about culture and stuff, I think that'll come out as kids are sharing ideas. They may find that they have a lot more in common than they don't. And they have a lot of common, interests and so forth. So I'll let you know where that's headed. I've got to do a letter that will explain to parents what basically what I said and what we're trying to give the students an opportunity to provide some input into this. And I have to tell you, the students at these meetings were all shaking their heads like, yeah, we want to voice, we want to have a voice and share our thinking. So, so those are those two items. Are we okay to move on? Thumbs up, down, if you have other. Okay, looks like we're moving on. All right. So we had a meeting with Pioneer, and we had some technical difficulties. Greg did a nice job with Deb Pote, you know, explaining what we were doing and answering some questions. We learned about the presentation, and I had a chance to talk to Karen, who wasn't able to attend this meeting. So I tried to put those in the cover letter, but just for the minute purposes, she thought it was important that we let people know that we had a small sample of participants because of COVID to get the information we have. And that's why we're reaching out to her and hopefully have more participation. She also thought it would be important to let people know that at some point, sooner than later, we would like to make a recommendation on whether we feel we should be going forward. And yes, we're going to be getting input from select boards and stuff before we get to that point. But she thought that might create a little more urgency for people to participate and get involved and express their opinions and come to some of these meetings. She did not like the way that the background was what do we have, white letter on blue? She thought it should be black letter on some background, so it would be much easier to read. And that, making sure that we talk about these are potential benefits, and that we may learn more about that through this process with students and with staff and so forth. But that she thought we should be informing people that the planning board did take a vote to support the findings, or we agree with the findings about the potential educational benefits to this. So let's see. Jen, were you on that remotely? Oh, okay. You're on mute.
I don't know what's with technology me today. Yes, correct. I was remote.
So was it, from looking at it from afar, was it easier for you than it would be? We were having trouble reading the screen. We didn't know how that was going to come out for people participating remotely.
It was fine for me. I also know how to Zoom on my end, so it wasn't hard for me. And I don't think it was too incredibly small without Zooming either. It felt
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Deb, you were there, and I so much appreciate you being there. Deb had just had an operation that day. She was a little under the weather, I guess is the way I'll put it. And I was just so impressed. She was obviously having pain and had a long day and was trying to recover from surgery, but she wanted to support this initiative and come to the meeting along with Greg. They sat side by side, and as we went through the presentation. Deb, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
No, but I was glad I showed up because we would have been much later. I've had some strong feelings about how far down we were on the agenda. So I was glad that Greg gave me get up there. I mean, because anyhow. No, I thought it went well. It was I don't know. I'd like to think that people were interested and engaged in our presentation, and I'm sure glad that we went earlier than later.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Deb had expressed an interest of having it moved up, but that didn't seem like it was getting any traction. And then she went in under citizens' comments and asked that this happen. We were like 2/3 of the way through the agenda. So we just handled the budget piece, and then we moved into this. And it was about 45 minutes. So I thought it went pretty well. But they did not have a chance to talk about it. And it really should be on the respective agendas at some point when we release more information and have the school committee have a dialogue. It would really be nice at some point to actually have a joint school committee and have a dialogue. So more to come. Greg, since you did the presenting, I'll give you the last opportunity to contribute to your thoughts, and then we'll move on.
I thought it went fine. I mean, it went much better than the government presentation. And it was nice to be able to take time with the slides and have a conversation. So no, that's fine. I think Mike has his hand up.
Thank you, Greg. Mike?
Yeah, maybe you already answered this, but I was curious if there was any reaction from the school committee. It sounds like maybe the answer is no.
My brother-in-law, Steve Martin, had a lot of questions. It was all very funny.
Like what sort of question? I mean,
I
I'm
think he
curious
was
what.
he was, I think, the only one that asked questions. I think he was curious, maybe surprised by the fact that we didn't find or didn't really even think that there would be a money saver, like financial benefit to merging. And I think there's an ongoing sort of desire for us to really sort of spell out what are the negatives. He was sort of talking about, oh, you have the positives and you have some challenges, but what about like what would be negative about this experience of regionalizing, which again, I think it's all speculation. So I'm not in favor of that, but I think that is something that people look for. Those are the two things that I remember him asking questions about or responding to. Oh, and he also asked questions about the historical nature, I think, of Vernon leaving the schools. It's worth watching the video, I think, just to see like people's engagement in it. If you get a chance to watch the school committee meeting, I know it has been posted.
Yeah, I'm hoping to watch it. It isn't on BNC TV's website yet, so.
But it's there if you just Google it, because I went back and look to watch
Oh, I didn't
myself.
realize
I
that.
wanted to see. Yeah, it was up within a couple of days.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Um,
Thanks, Deb.
I also, I would just have a quick comment because I did watch the budget presentation meeting. Where someone asked the question is what's going on with the 6-town thing. And I was struck that the answer from the school committee chair was, well, it's number one, you know, she mentioned the upcoming presentation, but she also said it's not really a school committee matter, it's really up to the towns. And I guess I just like to, say that my feeling is that that's true. But I personally think that the opinions of the respective school committees should be considered important, I think. I mean, the school committees, in theory, are the citizens most involved with education in the community. And to say this whole thing is going on and the school committee, really isn't paying attention because they're not going to make a decision, well, it just seems like it surprised me that was the reaction, and I just thought I'd put that out there.
Right, and I think you're right. I think the optics would look bad if the school committee was not at least open-minded. I think that's the whole point of us maybe trying to engage, getting students engaged and having an open dialogue. I think Greg and I hopefully made that sort of very much like we're just providing information and trying to share what we have found. And yeah, I do think people have strong feelings and they're more or less able to hide those feelings in the way they talk about our planning board.
Yeah.
One of the takeaways that
And I just butt in and say that I agree with Deb on that one. I mean, what's interesting was that there were five of the STRPB members are on that school committee. And there wasn't, other than Alan chimed in, there wasn't a lot that coming from them. It just maybe felt like they were a little scared to talk in that meeting. Maybe I'm just projecting, I don't know, but it did feel like that there was a apprehension to speak on it. So, but I may be wrong. I don't know.
Well,
But
to put that in perspective, it
I
was
agree with Mike.
to put that in perspective, it was a long meeting and the chair had just said, when you were wrapping up, we spent 45 minutes. I think she was thinking it would be about a half hour. And as you know, we had a very long agenda. So I didn't take it that it's not that they didn't want to discuss it or have questions. I took it that we got a lot left on this agenda to accomplish. And so we'd pick it up at another time. One of the positive things I took away, there was no doubt in my mind by the heads nodding and in agreement, particularly when Steve was talking, of the support that was given to, yes, we want to hear what the students have to say. We think this is good that you're reaching out and getting them together and having them have conversations. So I took that away as a very positive from the overall school committee saying, we think that definitely should happen. So, okay, we good on that one? Deb?
Alan, is there any plan? I mean, once again, we're not the school committees. Is there any plan to encourage them to discuss it further? Or if neither one of the school committees put this on their agenda again, is it just dead in the water again?
I think it will be easier to get it back on the agenda. I think we should do it after we get more information now from the stakeholders that we're reaching out to and getting a really good report there. And I think that we need to nail down a much better understanding of the financial that we're sharing with the select boards and stuff. And so that, you know, they can look at the bigger picture or their whole, all the aspects to this and give feedback that we'll be looking for before we make a recommendation. I'll do Jen and then go to Bill. And
Yeah,
then go
thank
back
you.
to Mike.
Super quick based off of Deb's comment. So if and when it's brought back up to the school committees, the intent of bringing it back up is more information, or are we going to be asking a vote in support? I guess what would be the next step when we do bring it back up to the school committee? Or just for more dialogue and more communication?
I think we'd be bringing it up to get more of their involvement, more of their you know, dialogue and looking at things and making comments on it. I don't know if we would be asking for, at this point, an endorsement of the school committee, but
Yeah.
we can talk more about that. So that's kind of up in the air, but clearly they haven't had a chance to just talk about their feelings about it, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what concerns they have, what we haven't addressed, what challenges should we be looking more at, and so
And I
forth.
think if it's prefaced that way versus an information one-way information monologue versus, hey, the intent is discuss these things, I think it'd be super helpful.
Okay,
I know
Jen, I'll
I go
partner with
through
you.
sometimes thinking I'm listening to what people are saying versus an active dialogue.
Yeah, I'll partner with you, Jen, before that gets on an agenda to talk, you
Yep.
know, write a little position paper, so to speak, or a white paper on what we're hoping to accomplish. Bill, you could probably add to this, being on a school committee.
The only part I want to add is that for a long time, particularly in the last few months, the Six-Town Regional Planning Board is a permanent place on our agenda. So anytime that there's information available, it's provided. It's a permanent part of the agenda. It's not some casual thing. And I think that that's a total failure of Pioneer's involvement in all of this, is the total reluctance to engage in it at all. That's my personal opinion, but I'm truly disappointed that it hasn't gotten further than it has. Beyond that, I do want to say that even though our superintendent, Gil Montague's, initiated this whole process in general terms, the school committee, Gil Montague, has never expressed any position one way or the other. They're not supporting it. They're not objecting to it. It has never been brought to a vote as to how do we want to side on this or anything like that. So the committee has it on its agenda. When there's information that I can provide, I do. And I wish that the other half would at least go partway on that kind of an effort. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bill. And I hope we're going to make more progress in that. Mike and then Christie.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on what Bill said, because I know that the meeting that followed the meeting where the STRPB did its presentation to Gil Montague, there was a discussion at Gil Montague. So Bill can speak more knowledgeably, but it sounds to me as if the Gil Montague School Committee is discussing this. My impression at the presentation was that they were interested, as Bill says, everybody, people are keeping an open mind. They appreciated getting the information that they got, and they're looking forward to getting more information, and they're not jumping to conclusions before that happens, but they're very open and I didn't want to it sounded before from some of the discussion that people thought that neither school committee was paying any attention. I get the impression Gil Montague was definitely paying attention and is interested in what's going on.
Thank you. Christie?
First of all, I just wanted to say Greg and Deb, you did a great job with the presentation, and I totally apologize. I had it on Thursday on my calendar, not Wednesday, so I would have been there to support you. One thing I've been thinking about moving forward is there a way that we can collect emails from all the people that are going to the forums, all the people that are at these presentations? And can we send follow-up Google surveys to them or a survey to them? And I feel like Pioneer is very data-driven, and the more things that we can bring them, they might pay a little bit more attention to that.
So to that
Just a
point,
thought.
part of the plan this time around is that we ask for people to sign in with their email or address, mailing address, whichever is going to work best for them, so that we make sure that any other invitations we can invite them to make sure that when there is a follow-up survey. Before we did a survey, people didn't really, they were talking to neighbors or talking to their son or daughter to try to get an idea. We're hoping that we do a survey from informed people now that come to these forums. We want to reach back and get these things in their hands, either via email, via mailing, however is going to work for them. And we'll collect that, and we'll collect our own database in terms of how best to get the survey out and get information or feedback. So to your point, that is a great strategy, and that will be shared. That will be part of the routine as the first step as people are invited to these and come in the door. Deb, you want to have the final on this?
I just think if it's possible to certainly have, I know that at Pioneer they have, 2 representatives who come, student representatives, and I would hope that those 2 students are able to go and then maybe be part of a little bit of a presentation that could be on the agenda of their experience of going over to see the school, and also the same, other students from Gil Montague coming to Pioneer to check it out and getting a response. I think the goal for us is always to find opportunity to present to the school committee as often as we can, even, whether we're officially on the agenda or not. I think if they can't put us on the agenda in a formal way, we have to keep finding ways to present and share information, because politically it's just going to be key for us to look like we've tried everything that we can to get the word out to as many people as possible. Whether they vote to support it or not, I think that's almost that's not meaningful to me. I don't think, even to us as a group. It would be nice, yes, but I don't think that's really, maybe that's not their role, but their role really is to be open to the information that we're trying to share with them, and for us to get the word out in as many different places as possible. I wish we were on the agenda the way it is in Gil Montague.
So that's an excellent suggestion, Deb. The Pioneer, at their meetings, they have a student rep, the student reps, the 2 members, do a presentation on various things, visiting the school and things they've been engaged in. So I made a note of that, because that would be a wonderful opportunity to come back and share with the school board the experience, whatever that may be, with the full committee. So that's great, and I'm sure Bill would work to see if they could be a part. I don't know, Bill, if the students have a presence at your meeting and get a chance to share what's happening from their perspective in the school.
They're on the agenda every week, every month too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Deb.
So speaking to Deb's point, would it be something that the board would go under the public agenda every meeting, just for a 2-minute? This is where we're at. People just want to keep you filled in, and just put it under the public comment in the Pioneer School. They're not going to put us on the agenda, then just have someone do a 2-minute update.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So that it can be said that we were trying.
Right, and I did ask to be on as a standing committee now, and I think we have been on the last couple of agendas. And where I can have an update, but we can have Michelle, we can have various people that are on the planning board give an update. That'd be very helpful if it's coming from other planning board members and school committee members. That'd be great. Keep that in mind, Michelle. And Jen. And whoever's else here. By the way, I don't know if you're aware that Amy, how do we say that? Peretti, is chair of the school committee in Greenfield, and they're experiencing many of the same things we are. And she wanted to come in and join our meeting and just see how, what we're doing and what we're up to. So I'm sorry I didn't introduce you earlier, Amy.
Totally fine. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for your interest. Okay, we'll move on to, so the annual report, I'll write something up, get it out to folks, have you make your comments, which was what my lack of communication, that didn't happen to the Board of Selectmen, that was on me. So I'll get something out, you can take a look at it, see if you feel it's got the right tone and so forth. I'm gonna do that in the next week. I need to get it out because the various towns will start generating their annual town meeting reports now. So be expecting that, and then give me your individual feedback, and then I'll wrap it up into a final draft or a draft and get it out. The grant amendment, we talked about it a little bit in terms of when we have a facilitator. We have hit the towns. We're going to be doing the PTOs, the parents. We did the school committee next. We're doing the parents, and then we'll continue on. We have the students in there with the teachers and senior citizens and so forth. So I was hoping that we could help to focus the facilitator on not being involved with the nitty-gritty of contacting the PTO president through the principal or through whatever, to set up a meeting with the parents and the teachers, it's a PTO or PTA, and have a presentation, and then get feedback and so forth, and get on their agendas. So I was hoping that people, like someone would volunteer and say, okay, I'll arrange for Berniston Elementary to see when that is. Christy, is that a yes?
Yes. So I think the last time Raina said that she was going to maybe contact the Berniston and Northfield PTO, but I don't know if she did. But I would be willing to do that. I can contact them. I can even contact Pioneer, and I can arrange meetings. I can be in charge of that.
That'd be great. Now, this would be, for the parents, it could be, or parents, teachers at the elementary. And I don't know what your thoughts would be, but I'd leave it up to you. The facilitator probably, since we didn't have a larger pool with teachers, we want to run that by again and try to get more teachers from each of the faculties. And so if you could do the high school and Berniston, that would be terrific. I don't know, how do we get the middle school parents? Do they have a separate organization that you could organize?
As far as I know, it's all together. I think it's just PVR, like PVRS. But I can definitely look into that. And I know that Northfield and Berniston, they have regularly scheduled like every month meetings. And so maybe getting on, the agenda of one of those meetings, we could do that. But I'm not sure if there's an organized group currently for Pioneer parent. I mean, I think there's got to be, but I'll have to check into that.
All right, thank you so much on that. So I'll give you a call after this meeting. Can you send me your number again, and we'll have a follow-up on that.
Okay.
How about Northfield? Northfield Elementary, making connection there to.
I can do that too.
You're willing to do that too?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I can do Pioneer.
Oh, the Pioneer District, the two
Mhm.
elementaries and, thank you. And if anyone wants to volunteer to help coordinate, please get in touch with Christy. That'd be great. So that took care of all those. Let's move right down to, that's wonderful. So at Gil Montague, there's Hillcrest Elementary, Sheffield. Is Sheffield, these aren't like K-6, right? These are like 1 to 3 or something like that. How are these
So
organized?
Hillcrest is K2 and Sheffield is 3 through 5. And the middle school is 6, 8.
There you go.
Gill is K, could be 6,
56.
5. Irving is usually K6. I don't think any 6th graders are going to the middle school yet.
Yeah,
I don't,
actually, I think that doesn't, isn't it pre-K through 2?
Oh, pre-K,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Is what, Gil?
No, Hillcrest is pre-K.
Pre-K through 2.
Oh, Hillcrest.
Yeah, I'll contact all those people.
Okay, good. So you'll do the Hillcrest, Sheffield and Gil Montague, Gil Elementary.
Yep.
That'd be great. What about Turners Falls Middle School and Turners Falls High School?
No, so I'll do all those.
Oh, thank you.
The only thing I'm thinking though is I know they're called PTOs, but to be quite honest with you, the amount of teacher other than the teacher who might be helping organize it at that level, there aren't teachers involved at the high school PTO level. There aren't teachers usually involved other than it could be 1 or 2 who help coordinate things. So I don't think we should use this as a forum to get teachers involved. This is a forum to have parents involved. So even though it's PTO or PTA, this is to give and I assume you want to do the presentation. So I should tell them it's around a 45-minute presentation. Question and answer afterwards, just giving them some parameters as to what will
Hour or
occur.
less, so that we can spend more time actually hearing their opinion. But
Okay.
can I ask you, and maybe someone else will want to jump in, is it possible, Deb, that you and Christy and maybe a couple of people could put together like an invitation that would explain and maybe get parents excited or interested, because it would affect the kids that are in elementary school. This is 2-3 years out, to get them interested, so that we can either send it out via email or somehow that sets the expectation of what we'll be doing and why it is so important to hear from them.
Say I would leave it up to the presidents of my contact person, and I would ask them, how do you best communicate with your constituents and your parents? What's your way of doing it? If they say, heck, we send out a paper home or something like that, I would say, for instance, we'll say they sent home a flyer. That's how they coordinate with their parents at the elementary school level. I would then ask them, would you be, if we provide and we sit together and talk about this, and then at that point, would they talk to the principal, or I could talk to the principal and ask them if that's an appropriate way? Would they feel comfortable? If that's the way the PTO usually communicates, I would communicate in whatever way that PTO or PTA president feels is what they do. So I don't want to say to someone, hey, don't you think we should be emailing them, if they go, no, we only do flyers. So I think it's up to them to decide how we communicate, and up to us what we want to communicate.
I would agree with that. Bill? And then Christy.
yeah, I'd agree with that too. I just want to add that Gil Montague also has a community outreach person. Her name is Langnecht.
Oh,
Um, What?
Can you spell that?
Shayna?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I-
Shayna. Shayna is one of the, I think she's Hillcrest's contact person.
Yeah,
Yep. So she's on the list. I didn't know she was the overall Gil Montague,
community outreach
Community.
is how I look at it. But in any event, I'm sure that one aspect of her job is focusing on a specific population, but nonetheless,
okay.
I think it also gets you into, at least in Gil Montague, a lot of communication is through email. So they have email lists.
Yep.
And you can ask for the viability of getting their email list, if that doesn't offend people, for example, for privacy.
Well,
Bill,
once
can you spell her last name? I couldn't catch it.
she isn't Langnet
That's a good one.
I was gonna say she has a married name now. I know, I don't think she goes by Langnet as her only last name. I think she's a hyphenated last name. I just don't have it in front of me.
I'm hearing
either.
you say Langnet, if I'm just hearing it phonetically.
It's
I can spell it.
LANGK.
Mike, no.
Mike?
Langknecht.
NCHT, yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
And you have that info. I sent it to you. She's on there.
Oh, she's on there. So this might be a really good person, Bill, and folks, to put that out further in community outreach, to look at the senior center, in Berniston. I don't know if Northville has a senior center or a way to reach out to them. If this is the person that would coordinate something in Gil Montague for outreach to other folks. I don't know, but I thought we focus on the parent part and get that going, and then be ready to reach out beyond that to a greater community.
Yeah, I
I don't-
don't think Shayna is reaching out into the senior centers and stuff as part of her community outreach. It's more community outreach with the parents
Okay,
and local, whatever. It's not.
okay. All right, and then the second, all right, so we'll focus on the parents next. I think that's what we said we'd be doing with the facilitator. And then while we're doing that, we can start setting up additional meetings with other stakeholders to reach out more. Christy, I'm sorry.
It's okay, don't worry. How soon, like, let's say they're like, oh, March, are we ready for was the facilitator going to be ready to do presentations in March?
Here's how I think we can play this. I will, once we hire a facilitator, I will get all the available dates that he or she would be available. And I will get that to you, Christy, and to Deb and so forth, so you can have all of those. And then maybe as you're filling those dates, you can keep in communication so the facilitator is not competing for the same date. So you're not competing for the same date with a facilitator. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, Al, did you see Joanne's email regarding the turnaround of the RFQ? Just, so you might want to check your email so that we can get that out the door ASAP. Because she's concerned about the tight turnaround, but you
Okay,
just take a look at the email, because you can.
I read it.
Not now, but
No, I read it.
Okay.
And I called her.
Okay, good. All right.
And so, there are certain thresholds that you cross.
Yep.
And I'm anticipating that the threshold for the activities that we're looking at now would be under 10,000. That's my feeling. And with that, you do not have to go through the publication for the couple weeks and all of that. There's a much more truncated process. So I spoke to her about doing an RFQ, and if our and that was what I was anticipating. And so I think we'll be able to move forward very quickly going that route. Mike.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, out of curiosity, do you have a rough timeline on when all this is gonna take place? I mean, what kind of from start, it sounds like the RFQ has not gone out yet, is that true?
The RFQ was, did we not?
I'm
didn't
not trying
we
to put you on the spot, but
No, no, that's
I'm just-
okay.
I'm
Didn't we
thinking,
share that
you know,
at
the
the
RFQ's
last
gotta go
meeting
out,
of what
gotta get
the deliverables
responses.
would be in the new RFQ that knocked it down that got it to 125,000. And that was for both pieces, the facilitator and the finances. And then that we sent to Joanne. So she has that. And so that will, I think that's what she was asking now, she has it, and she will be, getting that out, making that available.
Okay, but I guess I'm just wondering kind of what your sense, and I'm not trying to, like I say, I'm not trying to pin you down, but the RFQ's got to go out, it's got to be responded to, we get a facilitator in place. A certain number of these presentations will happen. But I mean, are we looking at, 2 a week, 3 a week, 5 a week, 10 a week, how many are we going to do total? By when do we think they'll be done? We've got to collect the feedback and organize it in some way to present. And I'm just kind of, are we talking, are you looking at having all this done by kind of when? I mean, do you have a rough, are we talking end of March or end of May or?
I would think this process would be March, April, and part of May. And then
Okay.
we'd start we'd be having conversations with the when we get a final report. If we need more, we'd have some more money available, because we'll be also working on the financial piece. But I want to get this thing going. So I figure it's going to be a 2 to 3 month effort, but we will, we will need to see what dates and how we'll be able, how quickly we can do this without rushing it. The important thing is to get dates that people will be able to attend and provide feedback.
Right.
So I wish I could give you a better answer right now, but.
Well, no, that's cool. That's cool. I understand. I mean, if we could predict the future, it would be a different world. But I mean, I've had some conversations with Steve Ellis, and he's kind of said, well, what do you think is going to happen? And, I said, well, gee, you got me. So I'm just, I'd like to be able to get back to him, and because, part of our conversation is, how much attention the select board actually has for this, given all the other stuff on their plate. And,
Yeah.
he's a guy, he likes to look ahead and say, well,
Yeah.
when, so understanding things will change, I can brief him based on what you've just said.
Yeah. I would like to be having conversations with the select board sometime in early May to
Okay.
give them both sides of the equation and all the other little C, D, E, F, Gs and so forth along the way that make up, all the aspects of this.
I mean, that might work out well for Montague, because it'll probably be right after our annual town meeting.
Deb?
Alan, two things. Number one, Christy, I'll email you at some point this week and we'll get together about trying to figure something out. The other piece was, yeah, that's what happens with age. The oil burner goes on, scares you, and you forget what you were going to say. No, the other piece I was going to say is, so are you telling me that these presentations with the PTOs should not take place until the facilitator is in place.
Yes, and that should be fairly soon.
Okay, so that's was just my question. So what I would do is also in reverse. I will ask the PTOs what are their available dates, get those dates to you, and then you can figure out if there's any that coordinate whatever.
I like that. I
it-
like that, Deb. And
it would-
Christie, you could do the same.
I will probably include maybe Gil and Irving together. So we don't have meetings with maybe 3 parents. Or offer 2 elementary school meetings within the Gil Montague districts. So that people have a choice of maybe going to either meeting. Because once again, I don't want someone to go, and PTOs at the elementary school are a little bit more active, we'll say, than in the middle school and the high school. But you also don't want to have, like I said, a meeting with so few people. So I think that's probably the way I'll go in Gil Montague is try to coordinate a couple of dates that the people could all get to. And
So,
probably include the middle school and the high school together.
Yeah.
Even though
well,
they,
certainly if you could coordinate a joint, if they ever do that, a joint PTO where 2 or 3 of the schools come together, if that's what you're saying as an
I
idea.
think I'll do it being there's 3 elementary schools, I would probably do 2 dates. Which
Yeah.
might also increase the participation of, oh, I can't make it that date, but I could make it
Yeah.
that date.
Sounds like you got some good ideas to start. Okay, so in the financial part, sort of, we're a little bit on hold, and I guess I'll just trying to think, did I review this last time? The big picture, or the Reader's Digest version, is that we're going to see what Pioneer comes up with for their budget, because they have the new salary schedules and their projections for insurance and all the pieces to it. We're going to see what the Gil Montague has for their budget, and we'll see how they're assessing the towns with that budget number. We will then also run assessments and the other 3 methodologies for whether they be the foundation or a rolling average or a 1 year to see what those would generate for assessments. And then concurrently, then we'll get things going on a potential salary schedule, see what that number would be for the collective bargaining units. I think we can get a fairly good idea what that might be, as a kind of a ballpark. And we can do the same for the insurance projections and for the health benefits. We know it's going to be more. We also had learned that as part of the budget process, the business office has to do their audit for the post-retirement benefits. And so we can see, what that would look like as we're. So by taking this information and adding it to the budget of the existing districts, again, that would just give us some information as to what that might look like. The idea behind that would be any of the savings we're repurposing that would go into student learning. The objective of that exercise isn't to, all right, how much can we save and how can we apply that to the assessment? That's a whole nother conversation of another time. But I think that will be enough information for boards of selectmen and finance and others to start having conversations of the financial implications of this. Taking that a step forward, if the towns do not decide to go forward, I'm not going to see this as our work has failed, because we have a blueprint of how we would go about this. We have informed DESE of the implications of their idea about districts becoming larger, and I think it was epiphany when they learned that the district would fall into hold harmless, and one of the districts would be losing money and so forth. And So Greg and I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Cummingford, and we expressed where we were and our concerns about the financial implications, that some things have to change. And I do have to say, Bill, that your comment haunted me for several days because it made me step back and realize that you were really onto something when you commented about the foundation budget. And, this is a new district, because when they were developing the foundation budget, part of what was going on, and I was early on as a superintendent, you probably know, I think it was Ed Moskovich was the mathematician that was, cranking out numbers and trying to look at how this new Education Reform Formula Act would help districts. And you had wealthy communities that were in a position that they could, I guess I have to be careful. If they could provide more for education for their students, which my words would be inflate their budget. Those are my words. And that they had that history of that. When the foundation budget was set, they were looking at their history. So communities that were wealthy came out of the gate with a pretty good foundation budget. Those communities that were struggling to just make ends meet and get a budget, they weren't really into a place to do that. And so my perspective was it was unfair coming out of the gate. It really favored, in my opinion, wealthier communities that were growing rapidly in their student population. And it was pointed out that, well, what are you going to do if you have declining enrollment? What are you going to do about the community wealth and that factor, and communities being able to afford this and their tax base and how you're sharing the percentages? And a lot of that, from my perspective, was the legislators as well. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, as well as DESE. And of course, declining enrollment came quicker than they thought. And so, yeah, they had to get to it. And it was like, well, gee, we can't take money away now. What are we going to do? Well, why don't we hold harmless, and we won't take money away, but we'll give them minimum aid, some dollar amount that was less per student. And so they get something. So, so when we talked to Senator Cummingford, we were coming from the perspective of, if this is a new district, building off your thought, Bill, we should have our own foundation budget. And our foundation budget should start off not being, in hold harmless. We should have one that supports the district, is financially, solvent, so we can move forward. And that we don't want just incentive money to help us through this process for a year or two. We want permanent money. So she listened, and I think I thought she was intrigued with that perspective. So I thank you, Bill, for that, sharing that about the foundation budget, because I think you're right on the money. And that anytime they think about districts doing something like this, they need to take a look at this from a different paradigm, and not say, I'm going to take two districts and blend them together and it is what it is. But you're creating a new district, and we need to establish a new foundation level for you. So, sorry for the long explanation of the thinking. So that's what we're going to do in the financial piece. We'll get real data, and then we'll build off of that as we share it with the boards of select. Mike.
Yeah, Alan, when you're talking about the history, just to clarify, are you talking about 1994 or 2007?
I'm talking about 1988, 89, 90, 91, 92.
Okay.
And
so
reform
before-
came in 1993, but they were putting together how this might work, because, as you know, there was a suit going on at the state,
Right.
because of funding for education wasn't equitable, and that they needed to address it. And so
Right.
the foundation formula was supposed to be the answer to addressing it.
Right. And my understanding is that I mean, the what you say is true. Um, but that, you know, that issue was raised in 2007. That was the spur for the 2007 reforms of the foundation budget,
The Student Opportunity Act, is that what you're talking about?
not the Student
no.
Opportunity Act, no.
Oh, no, that's recent.
Um,
What was 2007?
They moved to the, they moved to the wealth, they moved to the wealth aggregation formula.
Yeah, and I think they
And-
did that, Greg,
and I think-
again, to
and-
try to ameliorate some of the problems when they first came out.
I think they invented the foundation budget as being built from the student populations of the foundation enrollment. And I mean, I guess, you know, where I'm going is, you know, I think Bill's got a good point. You know, if you form a new district, you don't hold harmless in some ways is meaningless at that point because you have a new district. I think, no, my guess, and I could be wrong, though, is that if you take a new district and you build a foundation budget from the enrollments, you'll find that the foundation, you know, the foundation budget is, how do I put this? The Chapter 70 aid calculation will end up being smaller than the sum of the Chapter 70 aids which are being received now by the two districts. And that's where the hold harmless would come in, is if we just said, okay, fine, we're going to start a new district and we'll take the aid you want to give us, they're going to want to give us less aid by maybe as much as $1 million. And that I think we would have a case to say, well, hey, you can't do that. You should start us out at least at the sum of where we are now. I think they would probably, you know, have to end up having to agree with us. And that's where and then we would start out essentially in whole harmless because we would be getting more aid. I'd say the new district would be getting more aid than the calculation indicated that it should.
Yeah, and
So
I don't disagree. with you.
that's my guess is what would.
Yeah,
As to what
I
would
think
happen.
that
So
we should be
I'll be
setting.
curious
the
to see what the numbers show.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, man. I think we should be setting the table for how they should be approaching this very differently than in a new district, and maybe learn from their efforts as we begin to thrive with a new foundation formula or some adjustment that is going to help us.
Okay,
Greg?
well, I'll be curious to see what you come up with.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with Mike. I think that's most likely what would happen. And you know, the 2007, that's when they brought in, rejiggered that's when they brought in the 82.5% cap. That's when they determined the state local split of 59-41. You know, they were in back rooms. It was 60-40 for a while. The 82.5% cap was, who was it? Romney wanted 87.5, I think it was. Legislation
85.
or 85, was it? Yeah, 85. And then the legislature wanted 80. And so they came in at 82.5. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's still work to be done in those structural reforms that SOA doesn't really address, but it just kind of throws more money at us in a different way through factors.
Right.
But
Still
Yeah.
per student.
And we can help them address it through our efforts if they're serious about districts trying to pool their resources to
Hey.
benefit students. You can't be punishing or creating a system that is not going to be sustainable or affordable. And if they're really interested in the education of the students in Massachusetts, then they're going to have to look at this differently. So, so all of that was all around the assessment piece and the 6 town, doing it for the 6 town, the 5 towns. And I think I've covered all of the aspects on 8. and no one went to
I-
sleep.
Alan, can I add another
Yeah,
piece to this? It occurs to me, we haven't talked about the facilities in a while. And I bring it up because Gilmontague did get a property condition assessment for Turner's Falls High School. And I wonder, I remember hearing that Pioneer might be in the process of getting one for their high school. Is that true?
that is absolutely true. Matter of fact, I think they have already put that out now for people to look at. So I think they're using ESSER money to move that forward.
When you
Michelle
say
is
put
on the
that out for
budget.
people to look at, you mean to
Well,
have it done?
Let me defer to Michelle because she is on the budget subcommittee, so she
Yes.
knows a lot more than I do. Michelle?
Yep. We are using, excuse me. We are using ESSER funds. And the RFP, I believe. Sorry, the bids have to be in by, it's March 1st or March 7th. I'm not positive. So it should be done this summer. And
Can you
hopefully a
just-
report
Can you
back by.
just
the
talk
fall.
about what's in the RFP? What are they looking at?
They're looking at all buildings.
Can I,
They're looking at the high school and the 2 elementary schools.
I just want to,
Or,
if you're using the same firm that Gil Montague used, I will say I looked at the assessment for our elementary school and I have a lot of questions about this assessment. The numbers are very questionable. So I don't know, Mike, if you've looked at those assessments, but I'm not saying, there's certain things that I know are way off base. But I need to do a deeper dive into, asking some questions in terms of how they came up with the numbers that they did. So I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying, anything was done wrong. I just, we've been in a period of high inflation, and I'm not sure where some of these quotes came from. That's all.
Well, Lynn may be able, I think Lynn's looked at that. I have not looked much at the Turner's Falls High School one.
you mean
I-
quotes? What do you mean by quotes? Quotes for what?
For improvements, they're
Right.
gonna put forth a summary of the conditions and what the improvements are and what the cost of those improvements would be. And I do have a lot of questions about it.
Are your questions about the costs, Greg, or about the
Yeah,
things that they say? need to
meaning
be
what they're
improved?
quoting. So, I can give you, for instance, they quoted, replacing the elementary school roof at $170,000. If that's true, I want that person and I want to hire him now because it's really going to cost closer to 750 to $1 million. And
Okay.
so,
But I guess, I mean, do you question the need for the roof to be replaced, I guess?
no, I don't question the roof, the need for it to be replaced. I question the quote that they came up with for the replacement.
Okay. Well, and so, just to clarify, so Michelle, you say that's not likely to be done until sometime this summer, though?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Oh,
I
well.
bet the report won't be back till early fall, if not mid-fall.
Oh, well,
Okay.
okay.
Len, did you have your hand up? You're on mute. Len, you're on mute. Thank you.
I just wanted to weigh in on a small amount. I've had need to be getting quotes, and I must admit, I've been kind of blown away. We're getting quotes of $350 to $400 square foot. And this is on regular construction, but renovation kind of falls into a similar category. A lot of times renovation is even more expensive than start from the ground up. So I would support that. We really kind of need to look at it and ask lots of questions.
Okay.
Well, I'd say that whatever we can do to get a sense of what, what we're looking at, if, in terms of what those buildings are gonna need, would be good. I don't know if I mean, it sounds like the Gil Montague study at least could give us a list of, well, here are the issues that will need to be addressed. And we can talk about how to figure, appropriate dollar costs for those. I think Montague has some construction people on its capital improvements committee who might be helpful there. But I think starting with starting with a list of stuff that might need to be done is the beginning. And if there's any way we can get something similar for Pioneer, I would like to see it, because basically just because, walking into the district, I mean, if it all becomes one big district, then everybody becomes responsible for both buildings. And I would think that a number of people would sort of have questions about, well, what are we taking on here?
Yeah.
So
I
whatever
agree
we can
with
do
you,
to get an
Mike.
answer would be good.
I agree with you, Mike. There's been some comments in Leiden that with the numbers of students and depending on what the feasibility study shows, some of our elementary schools are very old and they may not be in great shape. So saying that we're going to keep the elementary students in the schools the way they are, if we look out 10 to 15 years, that may not necessarily be true. So Pioneer may be looking at something even further down the road just because of their buildings and what it will cost the towns to renovate those buildings. So I can't wait for the feasibility study to be completed.
Yep.
I think Greg knows the answer to this, but Gill Elementary, the building itself is retained by the town of Gill, and they maintain the physical building. So in the case of the elementary schools, even though it's a regional educational school district, it could be said that the towns would then, at least at the elementary school level, would have to maintain the physical building. I don't know if that's a condition to the.
That's true with Gil, yes. We maintain, as a town, we maintain the elementary school. We pay in through the assessment for the middle and high school and share that cost.
That's true in Montague as well.
Yep.
And I think it's true in the Pioneer. towns.
Pioneer, yeah.
So
But
if
I think it becomes an issue when you have kids from another town coming to your school, though. I bet that's gonna come up in Pioneer. Because Leiden won't pay for any elementary school repairs otherwise.
All right, this is all good stuff, and this is all stuff that will, the towns will have to, when we get back to them, they'll want to be taking this as well. So that's good information. Okay, so the next item was, what was it? Okay, so the next steps of the planning board. I think we're down to there. Oh, and by the way, Amy, just so that you know, we were commissioned to look at regionalization, and it was the 6 towns that came together that had an interest in this, but it could have been 7 or 8 or 9. In this, our efforts may end up, depending on where we are, that it's not big enough. We've heard some members say, maybe it needs to be expanded, and it should include other school systems that are having the same issues. So I'm glad that you're, seeing the struggles that we're all having. And we'll see what we go when we bring this to our towns.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating discussion, and certainly the problem is immense. And I look forward to kind of watching it all unfold. And I don't know that I have anything to add, although we had great luck in Greenfield using, maybe you've already used them or talked to them, NESDEC we did a facility study and an enrollment projection. And I've said for about a year now, it's the best $17,000 we ever spent in Greenfield, because it told us a lot of really helpful things about what to expect. And it did prioritize, they don't give cost assessments, I think, unless you ask for them. We did not. But they did prioritize for us different construction projects and different issues related to the use of our facilities and how that connects to our enrollments projections. So if you haven't looked at them, they may be helpful in what you're doing. And yeah, I don't count Greenfield out. I mean, we have very, very similar struggles to all of the towns and the two districts that you're talking about.
Yeah. We have used Mars and we have used NESDEC, and we've used them a couple times, and sometimes it was useful information, although we could have gotten similar information, and sometimes it just was not useful at all. So, Greg?
Amy, what's the capacity of the new high school building? And then what is your current enrollment? And what do you see as the, I mean, I'm assuming you're seeing a decline in the NASDAQ's projections. So what?
Yeah, the capacity for I believe, don't quote me on this, I can look it up and get back to you. The capacity for the high school, I think, is around 1,600, maybe up to 1,800. I'm not entirely sure. And we are at, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. I'm sorry. Our capacity, I'm thinking about the whole district and total number of students.
It seemed
I'll
high.
have to yeah, I'm sorry. I'll have to get back to you on what the actual capacity is.
I can answer that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
Sure,
I work
please.
at Greenfield High School.
please.
So I believe I was told that maybe 600, they couldn't do more than 600. And I think we have currently 480.
Yeah.
So that you know, all those different proposals of switching schools, Amy, you know, moving schools, if they moved 8th grade out, which is about 130 plus students, there would be enough room for the rest of us.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're talking about, is moving the 8th grade to the middle
like
school.
Bill Montague,
Yeah.
Pioneer, and
Bring it
Greenfield.
on.
So it'd be this
Although I will
wonderful
say,
big high school.
hey,
full
bring it
of
on. I'm
great
not
students.
opposed.
That's how I feel.
I'm not opposed to any of that. My concern over the regionalization being the only thing on the table, that's my biggest concern, is that the state says, oh, you need to regionalize. You just keep needing to regionalize and do it more and more and more. And I was particularly impacted by the experiment Natalie Blay did a couple of years ago, where she rode the bus with a student in the Mohawk Trail School District, who was on the bus for a total of about 3 hours a day, each day. And that piece for me, in terms of what you all are talking about, it doesn't sound like Warwick is involved. That would be, you know, those distances, Warwick to Greenfield, that type of thing would be what I would be concerned about. But I'm not convinced that regionalization is the only answer. I think it is an option. And I just want to kind of, you know, see how all of this works out and see how we can be, you know, a part of your problem solving. And I don't exactly know where we would do that yet. But I appreciate you giving me the number, because I'm constantly stuck on the total enrollment in the district, which is, you know, our baseline. But yeah, it's a very interesting problem to watch you guys work on here.
Yeah.
So I
So at some
appreciate you
point,
letting
maybe
me be
we can
here.
continue this as an agenda item and talk, you know, more around that topic. So going to almost the last major item on the agenda, we're on 9, next steps for the planning board. And this is just sort of an outline of where we think we were at, just to kind of review that eventually we'll deliberate on when we have enough information on the financial part, and we'll vote on you know, and it doesn't have to be unanimous either. I mean, we'll vote and people will look at information, have dialogue, deliberate, and we'll take a vote on that and see where we are. And then we're still not done, because then we need to really have some conversations about, okay, looking at the whole picture, both the academic or the educational, the financial part, and all the feedback we'll get from the boards and from our stakeholders and through this process, we will make our recommendations to the boards of selectmen, and they will decide, I guess, whether or not it goes on their respective warrants or what happens there, because whatever we do, we'll be doing hand in hand. If it's, we think that it's worth exploring or seeing what a regional agreement would look like, if the assessment piece could be advantageous through state funding or whatever, then we might go forward to put together, could there be a regional agreement that folks could in all the towns agree with on the language and on the financial assessments and so forth. So that would happen if we would be at least going forward to see what that piece would look like. And then again, do we bring it to the voters or not? Or do we now have a document that we would be able to share in its entirety on what that would look like? And we'd also work through the difficulties and know what they were, because we would have lived that in trying to come up with a unified regional agreement document. And we either use that information for the state with the state to be the poster child for funding things differently and supporting regionalization or joining districts, or we say, this is what we found, this is why we're not going forward, these are the problems, and if the state gets serious about addressing them, we would like to, we'd like to hear more. So this sort of laid out a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step on the kinds of things that we would need to be doing if we are going forward after we get that input. Comments about the kind of the steps on these are big steps. There are sub steps in between them, but I was just trying to give an overall picture. Does that make sense? Or are there steps that are not there that should be? Or it just doesn't seem like a very chronological methodology to work our way through these last bits of information, because we need to be done at some point. We've been doing this for quite a while, and we need to wrap it up, have a recommendation, and then whatever it is, and then let the chips fall as they may and see what's in the future. I see Mike's hand up, and that's all. Mike, is your hand up from before and not put down?
My hand is up from right now.
Okay.
You're looking at under 9, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes.
Okay. I see verified benefits and salary schedule for calculating potential budgets, number 2. I guess my understanding is that if you're going to come up with a potential budget, you have to have some sort of educational plan to base it on. In other words, unless we just assume that everybody who is now employed in the 2 districts will continue to be employed, which is something we could do, and that they'll figure out the educational plan when the time comes. But I mean, that wasn't what happened in that little graph that Greg showed us at the last meeting. He actually showed, sort of more potential programming, but a small reduction in staff. And so I'm kind of wondering how we're thinking that this is going to work. Are we looking at coming up with any kind of an educational plan? Or, I mean, the first real report that we got from the consultants had a couple of, very, very rough sketches, but there were a couple of different educational plans that they kind of sketched out with rough budgets attached to them. And it seems to me that if that could be done, that the towns might appreciate that as being told, well, if you want to spend X, then you could get something that looks like this. If you want to spend Y, well, then you can get something that looks like this. But that's clearly another step that isn't in those steps that I see up here.
So here's how I'd respond to that, Mike, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, so forgive me, but here's how I'd respond to that. An educational plan is put together by the educators in the district that are mapping out, with a blended staff. Majority of the staff or all are working together from the two districts, where they can have departments of 4 and 5 and so forth. And they will determine what the offers would be. So we're looking at salary schedules that supports this combined staff. I'm thinking that the information that we get from students on what they want to see for programs and services and courses and all the associated things with their perspective is going to be part of like an expectation or a vision of what the students want. We'd have a greater input from teachers and what they feel would be specific in terms of course offerings that they would like to see now, or maybe they used to have and they want them brought back, what new exciting things they would be able to do. And we'd be getting that information through this next round. So there would be from their perspective, a potential of here's what this combined staff could do together. And that would come from them. If we had at some point, maybe the school committee would have a vision of what this what a new district could look like. But it'd be nice to come from the students, come from the teachers, and we have that piece. Separate from that, because we're not going to directly tie that to an educational, an educational program with a budget to support it. We're looking at this budget with taking into consideration what that would look like by our adjusted estimated costs in a couple areas that we need to project a little better. And we would then see how that plays out in terms of assessments to the town. And so that would be the big picture but no, I don't think we're going to come up with an educational program of study of if you vote this amount of money, we're going to specifically guarantee all of this. But I think it's a pretty good given that it's probably going to be the majority of what materializes, because that will be driven by the staff and the students and by parents, by the way. What do parents want to see? What would they get excited about in a newly formed district that could add to their child's education and help them thrive and grow?
Okay, well, as long as, I guess I'm hearing that the plan is to just assume that everybody who's currently employed in the districts will remain employed, and that will produce excess capacity in a combined district so that more things will be possible. And am I right in thinking that I'm hearing that the teachers will kind of provide some sort of understanding for what might be possible, which will be somehow combined with what students and parents are hoping might be made available?
I think
And
that's
to use a simple example, if you've got a student that says, well, I'd like to be able to learn Urdu, that might be an expectation from that student, but if there's nobody who's qualified to teach that currently in the district, it's not going to happen. On the other hand, if someone says, oh, I'd like to be able to take, have a poetry elective, and you've got a teacher that says, yeah, I can offer that, and I'd have time in a combined district, then that could happen.
Well, and I think my teachers are going to be very interested in what students think they would like to see, that what might be possible, what they would get excited about.
Oh, sure. Sure.
And you had made another
But
point.
it's got to mesh with their abilities, right?
Right, but remember, I would agree with most of what you said with this exception. When we're talking about repurposing the money, it's for the benefit of students. And that would be, a lot of that money would be repurposed to accommodate a potential salary schedule with the union for our teaching staff and our paraprofessionals and so forth. So repurposing the money in those areas would allow for the engagement of these teachers to be blended together and form a new faculty that will be looking seriously at the data that we collect from the students, and they will also want to be engaging in how can we meet the needs of our students. That's what they're all about. We're
Okay.
going to be wrapping up shortly because
Let me just interject.
at 8:30, but go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so Mike, one of the things you saw in the chart that I provided in the last meeting was that some of the efficiencies that would happen were things like librarian. You don't need necessarily 2 librarians for your high school. So just because you have 1 in each doesn't mean you need 2. So it's some of the overlap where you really only need, let's say, one person doing the job for the high school. As far as the curriculum, it is very difficult to be able to set up a curriculum for a hypothetical new district when you have seniors leaving that have will be expressing certain interests, and you have 6th or 8th graders coming up that will be expressing interest. So a lot of times what happens is they look for what the interest is. For instance, if there's no interest in French, then they have to make adjustments.
Right.
So it's not,
I think
it's
I
always,
understand.
always a moving target. So to come up with and say, this is what we're going to offer is almost impossible. It has to happen, sort of, it's a organic sort of process.
I think I understand that. And I wasn't, I didn't mean to suggest that we were going to come, get down to the nitty gritty at that level, but, I guess maybe, to use your example, if we currently have 2 librarians and it seems, even if it seems clear that only 1 would be necessary in a combined district, we're still going to create a budget that pays 2 librarians off the bat and figure the assessments based on that budget. Because we're not going to get down and start saying, well, we can get rid of that one or whatever. Well, maybe we can assume that if the money didn't actually pay a librarian in the end, it might pay someone else to do something else.
Well, maybe because
I'm trying to understand how this budget is going to be developed.
Yeah, no, I would say not necessarily. There are some things that you can point to that is not in the central office that could be consolidated. So like a librarian, you're not gonna build in a budget necessarily with 2 business directors and the central office. So you're already creating efficiencies there. So some of that can trickle down into
So you're saying that will happen throughout the budget to some extent.
There could be for looking at something like a librarian position, which is not, when you have a librarian serving a high school of 140, 190, going to 330 does not mean you need to have 2 librarians. So,
okay, so someone's going to go through the staff and make those decisions then.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's not necessarily going through, every single department. It's just there's going to be, like you saw in that, going from 49 as a combined, total faculty. and some of these staff positions to 45. Like some just are, like there may be 3 or 4 positions, like you said, a small reduction, which is, that's just, it's similar to central office. You're gonna find those efficiencies. Not very
Well,
many.
that's the thing, is I'm not sure I'm gonna find them.
No, I think.
I'm not sure I would know what to look for, but
yeah.
are we saying that someone is going to find them?
Yeah, and I don't think that's, I mean, I don't think that's difficult to do when you're sending it to a consultant that has, tons of experience looking at these kind of things. So
So we're gonna have a consultant do that.
Alan?
well, these are these, but again, this is not like cutting departments and teachers. It's sort of,
Well, I'm not saying it is. I'm just trying to understand what you're talking about having happen.
yeah, I mean, in essence, Michael Sullivan did it with that that diagram that you did. It could come from a superintendent.
Alan,
Yes,
can I just say one thing? It's real simple, though. You have one librarian right now at the middle school and high school in Turner's Falls. You have one librarian up at Pioneer right now for their middle school and high school. Well, when the middle school goes up to Pioneer, that librarian's going to stay there. And when the high school goes down to Turner's Falls, that librarian is going to stay there. So you're still going to need 2 librarians. Just thought I'd put it.
okay. I think we're digressing over, my focus right now is the efficiencies in central office are the ones that we know that we would repurpose. And the others, that some of this stuff, folks, I don't have to tell you, this is going to be up to a newly formed school committee if it gets to that point. So, we only can take this so far. And we don't want to try to make something perfect when we're not in a position to make it perfect. But we can get it as close to right as possible. And then there's a process that it has to go through. So I would like to try to nail down another date and then let you guys unwind before bedtime. Bill, can I ask you when is the next time on your calendar that you don't, on a Tuesday, that you don't have something competing with the school committee? That we would not be competing with the school committee?
Our next school committee meeting is the 14th of March. So the 7th of March. The 21st of March,
Um,
and then we're into April.
okay,
Wednesdays are good for me. Mondays are good for me. Fridays are good. Those last 2 dates, nobody wants.
well, I would do it just to, be able to move things along. So let me ask this question, because I guess this will determine. We put out an RFQ. Let's say we get one person respond with a quote that's reasonable. Can I move forward with that person without having a board meeting to say, okay, I need the board to vote on hiring the facilitator? Would I have your blessing to move forward with that and start getting things in place? So can I get a thumbs up or thumbs down on that, just so I know?
I'll make that an official motion. Just so
Okay,
that it's official. If we have a quorum, I don't know, we might have
we
lost.
do.
I move that if there's only one applicant to the facilitator's position and it's at a reasonable course, that Alan Genovese be given the okay to.
The
approve.
authority to award.
There you go.
I'll second it.
Who seconded it? Bill?
Yeah, I
Bill
did.
or I, whatever.
Okay. All right, I guess because we're in remote, I have to do a roll call vote. So Mike,
Mike Naughton, aye.
Steve,
Steve Richter, aye.
Deb,
Deb Bloomer, aye.
Bill,
Bill Tomai.
Christie,
Christy Solda, I.
Michelle,
Michelle Drew, so I.
Lynn,
Lynn Reynolds, aye.
Greg,
Greg Snedeker, aye.
and Jen?
Jen Coffin, aye.
Okay. And if that doesn't happen, then, so if that does happen, I think we can wait till the 20, is the 21st a Tuesday, Bill, or whoever's got their calendar right now?
Yeah, it is.
How many, thumbs up or down? How many could make Tuesday, March 21st? Thumbs up or down? One, Mike, I can't see you. Oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Michelle can't. Jen can. 8, 9. All right. Well, I guess we have a quorum. So why don't we hit the 21st? Michelle, you can't participate. Wait, we do all ours remote. So I'll talk to you prior to, Michelle, when I get the cover letter, so that if you have any thoughts, I can share them with a full board. All right. Okay. Anything else that needs to be covered this evening?
I just wanted to add one thing that I picked up a paper from 2015, 2015 the other day, an article written by Jeff Singleton, talking about schools. And at that time, out of all the school districts in Massachusetts, only 71 were not held harmless. So 2/3 of the districts, at least in Massachusetts, were in hold harmless 7 years ago or 8 years ago. That just puts in a little perspective that when districts go into hold harmless or not, that you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Something's not right. Thank you.
A lot of.
All right, and thanks, Amy,
lot of
for joining
declining
us.
enrollment.
What did you say, Greg?
It's a lot of declining enrollment and older, population's aging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to
Quick
adjourn.
question, one last question. Any
Mike?
progress on getting someone else to set up the Zoom meetings?
Well, that would depend on when you want to bow out, because we love to have you on and doing this.
Yes, I know. Any day.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll volunteer to set up the next one, but I'd like to turn it over to somebody at that point.
okay,
We'll figure that out.
okay, thank you. Greg, if we need to, we can appropriate some of the, because we have a little bit in contingency to, if we need to get a license so that we can go more than
Yeah.
45 minutes.
We can make that happen.
We'll figure it out. All right, thanks, Mike. So I entertain a motion to adjourn. Deb, is that you making that motion?
I moved.
Okay, it's moved, seconded by Lynn. This is our final roll call vote, and thank you everyone for participating. Mike
Mike Naughton, aye.
and Steve,
Steve Richter, aye.
Christie,
Christy Silva, aye.
Bill,
Bill Tom, aye.
Deb Loomer,
Deb Bloomer, aye.
and Michelle,
Michelle, aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
Greg,
Great guy.
and Jen is I, and Jen, yes?
Yes. Jen,
Yeah.
yes.
And then I vote aye. And by the way, the chair voted in the affirmative for the motion about
Yep.
appointing.
Got
it.
Just so it's in there. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your evening. And I really do appreciate what you're doing. We're getting it done. Take care.